Obviously, I did not meet Milton Erickson in person. I am a little too young for that. Maybe I could contact his spirit somehow through some hypnotic process. But basically, those are the 10 things I learned from reading about him, reading from him, and watching his breakdowns, his videos, and hearing about what other hypnotists who knew him for real were talking about. The first tip is that hypnotizing others, whoever you want to get into a trance, it starts by hypnotizing yourself first. What do I mean by that is that many times when hypnotists have trouble to figure out how to do an induction, how to put somebody into a trance, usually it is because they are not used to get into a trance themselves. And I realized that when I read about Milton's story of pain control, how much trouble he had and how much he was able to at least ease down the pain through some self-hypnosis by putting himself into a trance, and comparing that to the people I was witnessing who could not hypnotize anyone else, I noticed all of them were people who never really practiced meditation, self-hypnosis, or any kind of mindset training, so they didn't really have any clue about what they are trying to get the subject into because they don't know it themselves. And on the opposite, I noticed the more I was practicing any type of self-hypnosis myself, the easier it was of altering my own state as I am speaking. And when I was doing that, people I was hypnotizing were going into a trance very easily because I was used to go there myself, and through rapport building, once rapport is there, they go into a trance really fast too. Tip number 2, very known among people who study Milton Erickson, it is that the voice tonality alone can be enough to make people go into a trance really easily. And that is kind of a consequence of the first tip about hypnotizing yourself, because the voice tonality is technically just a consequence of your state. When you are into a certain emotional state, your voice is going to adapt. That is kind of a topic of fascination to me these days because of some vocal coaching I took, but it is not the topic here, just that altering your own state will naturally make your voice adapt. So when you get yourself into a trance, then your voice, even if it is not really direct, your voice is going to alter at least a little bit, just enough for the brain of the person listening to you to adapt. Number 3 is that a symptom will very often hide or resolve a problem that was not seen, that was not being seen, at least in the first place. What does that mean is that when you work with somebody, or even when you practice self-hypnosis on your own, pretty often you just start from what is observable, what can be seen. Okay, I have pain in my chest, I cannot get motivated in the morning. Okay, that is the basic symptom we can talk about, we can notice. But once this symptom is solved through age regression, through the switch pattern, through the basic induction, whatever you do, very often it is going to move something else in the mind that was not clearly seen in the beginning. It is a concept that Robert Dills talks about a lot too. It is that people who have limitations very often will put a smoke screen in front of their beliefs. When something is really difficult to talk about, that the symptom of that difficult thing will appear somewhere else. So when you solve the symptom, it can work, but it is actually going to solve something deeper that the person was either not conscious of, or that they were conscious of it, but it was too difficult to talk about it. But in the end, it does not matter, and that is a big thing I noticed from reading the collected works of Milton Erickson, that through all the cases, many times he is solving something through the trance process that will actually activate something else in the head of the subject. And in any case, I think it is irrelevant to try to figure out consciously beforehand what this problem will solve in the end. It will be solved anyway when you take care of the person, of the subject in front of you once they are in a trance. Number 4 is to always let people, your subjects, your patients, always let them believe that their problem is real and is really serious. Even if you think it is nonsense, even if you think it is completely irrelevant, even if you think they are dumb as hell, even with all of that, letting them think that their problem really matters, because even if it doesn't look like it matters for you, it matters for them, otherwise they would not be here. And it is in opposition to what many people do on a day-to-day basis, trying to prove each other's wrong or trying to prove somebody why they should think like this or like that. With a client, with a patient in therapy, it is about whatever you think, you swallow it at first. Even if you have some judgment about why the hell does this person go through all that mess, yeah, that is their life, not yours. So you just keep your judgments silent for a minute, and you let them believe that whatever they talk about is the real problem, even if you know it is not. But it is the real problem, and you get them more reassured by letting them think that it is a very serious issue, whereas in the back of your head you may already know it is going to be solved in just one session. But for them it is more reassuring to see the therapist really taking care of listening, of not judging, understanding where did this come from in the beginning. Number 5, a new session or a second session with the same patient, with the same client, may let appear a completely different personality. I have seen that a few times in my own practice, and I didn't quite understand it until I read some books by Milton, because I would see somebody coming through my door on the first session, an extremely worried person, like almost super tense, almost not talking about anything because they were so constricted, and the second session almost like a different person, completely different person, because on this specific occasion that person had experienced a very positive shift during the first session, and then when she came back the second time, it was almost like a new, completely different person. And in the end, it might just be two sides of her personality, but you never quite know until you have tried everything you could think of in terms of hypnotic ideas. So you do whatever you can think about, age regression, altering the perception she has of reality, of time frames, how long it is going to take. You play with some language patterns. At some point, something you do or something you say, if you keep being flexible, something you do will create a shift in the mind of the client, and they may completely shift their perspective to another side of their identity, or another identity to some extent. And when they come back, it may not even seem like the same person. But it is completely normal. We all navigate through different sides of our identity or different identities through life. And the goal is just to find the best compromise the client can find right now at their disposal with their life situation. It does not mean it will not change again 1 year from now, 2 years from now, but helping them shape their identity or shape their personality so that it is the best match possible for their current life situation. And it's going to change through time. It is just like that. Life is changing, people are changing, so never trying to force somebody to fit into one specific model, but explore with them what in their personality, what in their identity can be the best match for where they are in life right now. Number 6, the less you're trying to control, the more efficient you will become as a hypnotherapist. So many intermediate hypnotists are still stuck into trying to control everything they say, everything, trying to memorize too much, or trying to control every possible reaction their client will have in a session. So if the client gets out of trance, they get worried and don't know what to do anymore. Whereas it is all about being flexible and composing like a musician, composing with whatever the client gives you as notes. To make like a music metaphor. A musician can compose with anything you give to him as a sounds and or as notes on a piano, and a good hypnotist can compose with any of the words he is hearing from the client's mouth. So when you're not trying to control in any way the method you are going to use to help that person, actually your brain is going to fire off better resources and will adapt more easily to what the patient is talking about. Number 7, always talking to people as if nothing was bad. Many times, especially in our Christian culture, even if I know every religion has good sides and bad sides anyway, our culture anyway is very infused with guilt, and many people put shame and guilt on themselves for things they have done wrong, things they shouldn't have done. It is very hard sometimes for a client to go into a therapist's office and talk about very private, intimate things. If on top of that you have judgments and you have this presupposition that these things shouldn't be done, that those types of people are really bad, they shouldn't exist, the client will just never open up enough to get to a deep change. So one of the first goals in a therapy session on your side as the hypnotherapist is to not judge anything, let it appear as if even the worst of the worst is still a neutral thing in your lingo. As if in your perspective, from your perspective, whatever the client talks about, that he thinks about raping people, whatever, it is fine, it is okay. In any case, it is what belongs in their head. Whatever is inside their head is validated as normal. Okay. Now from there, we can find some adaptation, find some ecological ways of dealing with their impulses, with their motivations, whatever. It will work very easily once you have accepted them as they are and encouraged them to open up, even if they think there are some shady things inside themselves that can talk about. What if everything was allowed? What if everything was permitted? Once everything is permitted and they can talk freely, then the solutions will appear very fast. But if you put a shame on themselves, if by your attitude you are like looking at them like, really, like this, and they are never really going to open up enough. But many people, when they come from the corporate world and they want to become a hypnotherapist, they are not used to not judge others. They may think they are good at that, but many I have seen are not good at all, and they are still trapped in their head into good, bad, into the notions of something is good, something is bad. Yes, if you want in your life, why not if you want, but with a patient in therapy, nothing is bad, everything is right anyway, because you want to encourage them to explore themselves enough so that they will find the right compromise for them. Not for you, not for your life. Never project what happens in your life on them. That is the worst mistake ever. Let them explore by themselves what would be a good compromise between their motivations, their sufferings, their wounds, their emotions, and their life situation. Help them to explore and never put any judgment on them, even if by the end the solution they talk about seems completely stupid for you. If it feels congruent and healthy for them, encourage them. If it fucks up later, they will come back to you anyway, so fine. Just help them, show them you don't judge, show them you are appreciative, and encourage them to find their own meanings, their own truth, even when it appears stupid or weird for you. Number 8, people just hypnotize themselves all day long as they describe their life experience or as they describe different moments of their life. So whenever some hypnotists have trouble to think about an induction process, they don't know how to hypnotize, or they think there should be a special method for this type of client, just ask them to talk about what they like. Because from the things they like, it will come out at some point that they get themselves into a very deep altered state just through doing the things they like. Even more if it is an artist or any person who is highly creative in their job, just ask them to describe this and they will give you all the hints about how do they get themselves into a trance. Do they, if it is like a computer science guy, even if they may not appear as artists in the beginning, but they may be as creative as an artist, even if they have a very technical job, just asking them to describe how do they solve a problem in their job, that could be enough to get their key, to get themselves into an altered state. And then you can just repeat the same experience. You just listen for the keywords, the key sequence of what happens first, what happens next. Do they look at their screen first, and then do they type on the keyboard, and then do they see images in their mind about how to solve the problem? Okay, visual external, then kinesthetic external, then visual internal. You can just use the same sequence as you describe describe how does someone get into a trance, and by following their sequence they will get hypnotized extremely fast. So the more you pay attention to how people talk about their positive life experiences or their creative life experiences in life in general, the more you are going to get hints about how to get them into a trance, and they may just even be there by themselves, even without you saying anything, but just because you have encouraged their unconscious mind to get back into that state as you talk to them. Number 9 is there is always something useful in people's lives, even when they don't think there is. And in the end, it is just about being more curious. I noticed that by reading the book My Voice Will Go With You by another author, but it was about Milton. Many stories about Milton and how he was dealing with that case, this patient, all of that. I noticed many times people would enter his office expecting something, and he would lead their mind into something that had nothing to do with it, and later it would solve the problem. The advice I internalized about this is always stay curious about what else in their life, what else in people's lives can be useful, can be used. Maybe right now their life is completely stuck, but maybe when they were 11 years old, something happened and you can use that experience to solve the problem at hand right now. Or maybe in their current life situation, another person or something else could be a more relevant goal than the thing they're trying to solve right now. You never know until you test. And it is never about finding the right idea before hypnotizing somebody. It is about testing topics of conversation, testing ideas, testing things, and whenever you notice a gleam in their eyes because they are so focused on what you say, okay, now you know this is a good trail to follow. But if you never test and try new things, they will just stay trapped in the same headspace as they were into when they came in. Number 10, and maybe the most important, people just act intuitively upon the things they need to act upon once they get out of trance. And sometimes it will not happen during the session. I think I got that in the book Hypnotherapy, where Erickson was saying that the change does not happen when you hypnotize people conversationally, through an induction, through whatever you want. The change happens when the client or the person does something they had never been able to do beforehand. That was another reason why Milton was very often giving them missions, assignments, even sometimes really dumb things, but assignments to make people go into unconventional ways, and when they go into some unconventional activity or thing to do, their mind was going to activate a resource or a change that was eventually planted or arranged or talked about during the session. But if the person never takes action in their real life after the session is over, that change may never activate. So people do need to take action on something once the session is over, and they may intuitively take that action just because their intuition is guiding them. Oh, I think I should do this, and they don't even know where it comes from, but you know where it comes from, or maybe they know, but whatever. Or they may do the same things as usual, go to work, talk to their wife, etc. But something in their internal states will change. Like they maybe before that they were constantly into arguing with their spouse, with their wife, and the next time they talk with her, it's going to be well, it's going to be fine. And they don't really know why, and maybe they will not even pay attention to it because it will just be intuitive, automatic at the moment they talk with her. And then they come back in a session with Erickson and they say, well, it's curious, I did not argue this week. And they may not even know why. Their state has changed, and they didn't figure out how specifically, but their state has changed in response to the session with Erickson. But their state has changed because they activated the change through talking with their wife again. So it is still the action they take after the session is over that activates all those magical changes that could have been planted or mentioned during the session. To some extent, I would say that a pretty good part of a hypnotherapist's job in a session is just to distract the conscious mind enough to let the unconscious do the work. Many times people are so clouded, like they are in such a mess in their head, and they are in constant anxiety and never letting go of anything, never letting their mind switch off, that they may not even know anymore how to access their intuition. When you get them in a trance, maybe it is not doing anything other than just switching off their conscious defense, their conscious mind, their overthinking, and from there they will find the answers by themselves. Just because you help them distracting that constant attempt at controlling and figuring out everything consciously, once you disconnect that, they may find the answers by themselves. And maybe whatever you said is going to work anyway because they are in the right state at this point. Now, if you want to learn more about that, I have prepared a 5-day challenge to master conversational hypnosis. You can find that down in the description. And during those 5 days, you will have one simple assignment per day. You can do it right away. You can do it a bit later after watching the whole 5 days in a row, as you want. It is completely free. You can download that right away. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you for listening.